Okay guys, our job is to use this information as best as possible to fill in these graphs or these boxes, okay? So based on the information, we might have to skip around in order to complete all boxes. We don't have to go in order, so I'll show you what that looks like. So first thing we want to fill in, let's look at this box. We want end behavior, so we want on the right side, because it's x positive infinity, so that means this is our right side. So let me just make a note of that. We want what is happening on our right side. So is it going up or down? And the thing that tells us what's happening on the right side is our leading coefficient. So we don't have an equation yet, so we really don't know our leading coefficient until we answer these guys down here, okay? All right, so we'll see if we can piece all this stuff together to figure out our leading coefficient. So now we want to know what's happening on the left side, because it's negative infinity here on the x-axis. So this is the left side of our graph. Well, if you notice, they actually give it to us. So our left side of the graph is positive infinity. Okay, so it means our left side of the graph is actually going up. So I'm going to make a little note of that in our graph. So now we're starting to fill in the next box. Okay. All right. So now we want to know if it's odd or even. Okay. Odd or even degree. And what that means is we really don't know until we could do these equations down here. Okay. So we want to know the highest powered, that would give us odd or even degree, or if it's in intercept form, which is another way of saying factored form. Okay, we would figure out our degree, okay, or we might have to manipulate it, as you will see in a little bit. X-intercepts, those are given to us. Bam, right here, I'm just going to list them. -3, 0. The other one is -2, 0. And -1, 0. So go ahead, let's graph those so we can start filling in this graph. So -3, 0. -2, 0. And -1, 0. Okay, we also have a y-intercept of -4. So that was done for us. Okay. All right. So I'm going to hold off on the leading coefficient and the odd or even degree until we get this done. So we're going to skip down to this guy. Okay. Factored form. The way you want to do factored form is if you know your x-intercepts, you can turn them into factored form. So watch. I'm going to write each x-intercept as an equation. Okay. So if you recall, these are really your x values. So I can write them as x equals to -3 for the first one. The next one is x equals to -2. And then the next one is x equals to -1. Okay, so what we want to do to turn them into factored form is right now they are in answer form. So to turn them into factored form, I want to get the number on the same side as the x. So I'm simply going to move this -3 back over by switching its sign. So I'm going to add 3 because we want it with the x. And that gives me my first factored form, which is x plus 3. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to add 2. We want it with the x. That gives me x plus 2. And then we're going to add 1. And that gives me x plus 1. And bam, we have factored form. So f of x equals that. Okay. The only thing we got to be careful is we still don't know, is there a positive or negative leading coefficient? And that's something we're going to have to figure out. So we're going to leave a little space here because we might have to put a negative in. It just depends what our graph looks like, okay? So now we can then take factored form and we can turn it into standard form. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So we need a little bit of room. So let's put our intercept or factor form here. Okay, and we're going to use it to turn it into standard form. So x plus 3, x plus 2, x plus 1. So x plus 3, x plus 2, and x plus 1. Okay, to turn it into standard form, we simply multiply this stuff out. So we're going to start distributing. So pay close attention. X times x, x squared. X times 2, positive 2x. All right. 3 times x is positive 3x. 3 times 2 is positive 6. All right, let's combine like terms. So the 2x and 3x is 5x. So we got x squared plus 5x plus 6. And then we bring in the x plus 1. We got to multiply this out now. All right, so let's be organized and let's do this. So we're going to go x squared times x. That gives me x to the third. X squared times 1x. That gives me positive x squared. Okay, and we're done with him. Then we go 5x times x. That gives me 5x squared. 5x times 1. That gives me positive 5x. We're done with him. Now we go to the 6. 6 times x. Positive 6x. And then 6 times 1. Positive 6. And now all we have to do is combine like terms. All right? So x to the third. There's nothing to combine, so we're just going to write it here. So again, x to the third. Bam. X to the second, we have another x to the second. So 1 plus 5 gives me 6x to the second. Okay, so he is gone and gone. All right, and then we go here, 5x plus 6x, that's positive 11x. And then we bring down the positive 6, and this is in standard form. Okay, so we have this. Now, if you look, this can tell us our degree. Remember, it's always in standard form, it's your highest powered. So our degree here is 3, which makes it odd. Okay? And what does that tell us about our end behavior? That means our end behavior are going to do the opposite. So since we know the left side's going up, because we have an odd degree, that means our right side has to go down, okay? So we now know that this has to be negative infinity. All right, since the right side's going down, what does that tell us about our leading coefficient? Remember, the right side is controlled by our leading coefficient. Because the right side's going down, we now know that our leading coefficient is negative. Remember, if the right side goes up, leading coefficient is positive. Right side goes down, leading coefficient is negative. which means I got to change my leading coefficient here. It's going to be negative now, which means this guy over here has to be negative. Okay, so my leading coefficient now, I'm going to do it like this just to be mathematically proper. My leading coefficient is negative. All right, so because we now know it's negative, I have to multiply the negative into the standard form. So it's going to be negative x to the third. Basically, we're switching all the signs. Negative 6x squared, negative 11x, negative 6. So this is my true standard form. Okay? So remember, I told you we're going to be jumping around from box to box to fill out all this stuff. Now let's sketch this graph. Okay? So we have to connect this arrow with only passing through these dots here. Okay? So if you look, we're going to use factor form. Okay? Because we have to find the degree. Does it cross or is it bounce? All right? So let's start connecting. So we're going to go here. Let's connect this here. Before I cross negative 3, what factor form gave me negative 3? It's this factor's form. What was his degree? It was odd, which means we cross, okay? Because it was a power of 1, which is odd. That means when we get to negative 3, we are just going to cross it. Cross. We have to come back up. Now we're going to go to negative 2. So what's negative 2 came from this guy, right? X equals negative 2. We turned it into this guy. So what's his power? His power is 1 as well. So that means we're going to cross at negative 2. So let's go ahead and cross at negative 2. So we got to come back up to hit negative 2. We got to cross. We got to come back down to hit negative 1. Okay, and we're going to look at negative 1. Negative 1 turned into this guy. What's his power? It is 1, which means we're going to cross there as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and cross there. So cross. And to just make it really accurate, if you notice, what was my intercept? It was negative 4. So I'm going to plot that here. And we know we have to cross there. Negative 4 is the y-intercept. And we're going down. I really didn't connect to this arrow, but we're doing the same thing as the arrow does. Okay? And we have figured everything out. So it's, again, piecing everything together to make sure you are filling in all these blanks. It doesn't mean you have to answer all this at once or do the graph all at once. Notice how I jumped around to help me fill in all this stuff. Okay? So again, you really have to know your stuff to fill in these boxes. All right? Let me get you the check-in code and get you out of here. All right, guys, let's do problem number 2. Fill in these boxes. Again, like always, we're going to jump around to fill in these appropriately. Okay, so we are given a graph now. And first thing I notice is that my right side is going up. So again, this end behavior here, since it's positive infinity, that's talking about the positive side of a graph. That's the right side of my graph. So this represents the right side. And what is it doing? Well, we know it's going, as you can see, it's going up here, which means we have positive infinity. Okay, up means positive infinity. Now the left side is going down, which means here's my left side. When it goes down, it's negative infinity. Okay, so end behavior filled in. Leading coefficient. All we need to know is it positive or negative? So if you look, my leading coefficient controls the right side. Since the right side is going up, that means my leading coefficient is positive. Because remember, right side is going up. All right. Now, we actually can answer the even odd degree. We answer this by looking at the left side. If it does the same, if my left side is doing the same as my right side, so if it was the same, it would be an even degree. Okay? Since it's not the same, it's going to be an odd degree because the left side and the right side are doing opposites. So based on this, we should get an odd degree. Okay? X-intercepts, we have them here. These are these dots here. So just be careful. It's going by, this is 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So make sure you know how it's counting. So my first x-intercept is this guy, which is going to be 2, 0. This guy here is actually 3, 0. And this guy here is 5, 0. Okay, so I'm going to write those down. 2, 0, 3, 0, 5, 0. 2, 0, 3, 0, and 5, 0. Okay, so again, I'm probably not going to fill this in because we do already have the graph. So if you want to just copy this graph here, you'd be set. Okay, so actually, let's just do it. So it's 2, 0. We have 3, 0, and 5, 0. So my graph looks like this. So just I'm copying the graph. Boom, boom. So it's a real quick sketch. Okay. All right. So the only thing we have to fill out here is the y-intercept, and we're going to do the y-intercept when we get into the equations, okay? So let's fill in the equations. Just like before, if we have the x-intercepts, we can turn it into intercept form. All right? Remember, intercept form is the same as factored form. Okay, so let's do that. We set the intercepts here in equation form. So our first intercept is 2, so it's going to be x equal to 2. Our next one is 3, which is x equal to 3, and then we also have x equal to 5. And we want to turn this back into factors form. We have it in answer form, so basically we want the numbers back with the x. Back with the x, back with the x, and that turns it into factors form. So to do that, we're going to subtract 2 here. That gives me x minus 2. Subtract 3 here. That gives me x minus 3. And subtract 5 here. That gives me x minus 5. And that is intercept form. Okay. We also know that our leading coefficient is positive. Okay, so our leading coefficient is going to be positive. So we could put a 1 here if you want, but you don't have to. No negative, positive. So now we're going to take this and multiply this out to turn it into standard form. So let's take x minus 2, x minus 3, x minus 5, and turn it into standard form by multiplying this out. So x times x, x squared, x times negative 3, negative 3x, negative 2 times x is negative 2x, and positive 6. Combine like terms here. That's going to give me negative 5x. So it's x squared minus 5x plus 6. Bring down the x minus 5, and we multiply it out again. X squared times x to the third, x squared times negative 5, negative 5x squared. We're done with the x here. Now we're going to have negative 5x times x. That's negative 5x squared. Negative 5x times negative 5, that's positive 25x. Okay, let me erase this real quick. That's positive 25x. All right, we're done with him. And then we go 6 times x, positive 6x, and then 6 times negative 5, and that's negative 30. All right, let's combine like terms. So x to the third, so let's put this in function form. So x to the third has no like terms, so we're done with x to the third. X squared's here, this turns into negative 10x squared. These guys are good. Then we have 25x plus 6x, that's 31x. And then negative 30. Okay, that is standard form. Now, we got everything so far. The only thing we need to answer is y-intercepts. How do you do y-intercepts? Take one of your equations. I prefer standard form. So I'm going to take standard form of the equation. And all you have to do is, to find the y-intercept, is plug in x equal to 0 and solve. Okay, so watch. Take the standard form. So our standard form is x to the third minus 10x squared plus 31x minus 30. Okay, and all we're going to do is, wherever you see an x, we're going to replace it with a 0. And what you'll notice, for standard form, your y-intercept will always be the constant, because 0 to the third, 0, negative 0 to the second is 0, 0 times 10, that turns into 0, 31 times 0, 0. The only thing you're going to have left is always your constant value in standard form. So my y-intercept, so that means my y is equal to negative 30, which means my y-intercept is, in point form, we plugged in 0 for x, and our y-intercept is negative 30. So if we really graph this correctly, our graph would cross all the way down at negative 30. Okay, so somewhere down here. All right? And your y-intercept always just crosses. There's no bouncing or anything. You don't have to worry about anything like that. Okay? That's number 2. Let's jump on to number 3. Okay, so basically we have this function. It's in standard form. So standard form is done for us. So I'm just going to write that in. So we have g of x equals 2x to the third minus 3x to the second negative 8x plus 12. Okay, so let's see what we can fill in the first square based on this. So if you look, your leading coefficient is positive because of the 2 here. So I know my leading coefficient is positive. And my leading coefficient, since it's positive, that controls the right side. Okay? So I know that my right side, because my leading coefficient is positive, that means my right side is going to go up, which means I have to have positive infinity here on the right side. Okay? Now let's look at the degree. So if we look at the degree of my standard form, it's odd. So I know that my degree is odd. Okay? So how does that help us with end behavior? Remember, this controls your left side. So here's my left side. What is it doing? It's going up or down. Since it's odd, odd means opposite of my right side. So we look, what's my right side doing? It's going up. So since it's odd, my left side is going to do the opposite, which means it's going to go down. That tells us we have negative infinity. All right. X-intercepts, we can't do that yet. Okay. And I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. But we can do the y-intercept. Okay. The y-intercept, like I mentioned in the previous problem, all we're going to do is plug in x for 0. So y-intercept, if I plug in x for 0, so 2, 0 to the third minus 3, 0 squared minus 8 times 0 plus 12. Again, when you plug in x in standard form, all this stuff just eliminates. All this stuff cancels out because it ends up being 0. And your y-intercept is actually just your constant, the number without the variable. This only works in standard form. So my y-intercept is 12. Okay, so I got to write it as a point. It's 0, 12. All right, so we got our y-intercept. Guys, we're almost done. We need x-intercepts and we need the graph, okay? So how do I find x-intercepts? And once I get x-intercepts, I can put it into intercept form, okay? So to do that, we are going to take my equation and the goal is to factor. So let's take 2x to the third. So this is standard form again, minus 3x squared minus 8x plus 12. And we need to change this into factored form. So essentially, we need to change it into intercept form. Okay, factored form in order to find the x-intercept. So to do this, remember your factoring weapons. These are your methods you can use. GCF, X method, snowflake method, and factor by grouping. These don't go away. You got to be good with those. So GCF doesn't work. There's nothing I can divide out. X method doesn't work because it's not an even power. Snowflake needs an even power as well. That doesn't work. So only method we can use is factor by grouping. And the reason is because we have 4 terms. Factor by grouping automatically is 4 terms. So if you remember, we're going to split this equation into 2. So the negative goes with the second set. Okay, that negative there goes with the second set. And we're going to GCF this guy. So the GCF here is going to be equal to, so what can divide 2 and 3? Really nothing. But they do have x's in common, so we pick the lowered power one for our GCF. So our GCF is x squared. Okay, so we're going to divide these out from our GCF. So we're going to have 2 divided by, we have a 1 here, which 2 divided by 1 is just 2. X to the third, divide away 2 of them, that's x. Negative 3 divided by 1 is just negative 3. X to the second, divide out 2 of them, is just negative 3. So this, and then our GCF goes in front. All right, let's do the same thing over here. I can divide out a negative 4. Remember, we're doing negative because we don't like negatives in front. So we're going to divide out a negative 4 for GCF. Okay. And then no variable because they don't have the same x. So our GCF is negative 4. Negative 4. That's going to give me 2x, positive 2x, minus 3, and then our GCF is negative 4. Double check, are these the same? Yes, they are, so we can regroup. Our GCFs go together, and then our parentheses get written down once. And now we got to double check, can I factor some more? Since this is a power of 2, I can factor diamond, X, or snowflake, okay? Since the A value here is 1, we're going to use X method. So let me rewrite this because you need your A, B, and C when we use this factoring. So our A value is here, our C value is here. We are missing the B, which means our B value is actually 0. So let's rewrite this out in the correct format. X squared plus our B value is 0 in the middle, 0x, and our C value is 4, and we're going to use X, okay? So X method is A times C, or 1 times negative 4. That's negative 4 on top, 0 on bottom. What multiplies the negative 4 that adds up to 0? That's easy, negative 2, positive 2. Once we have the magic pair, we can rewrite. So this factors into this. 2 parentheses, each get an X, and we go negative 2, positive 2, and then our next guy is 2x minus 3. Okay, we have just found factored intercept form. So I'm going to write that down here. So it's f of x equals x minus 2, x plus 2. And then 2x minus 3. So that is intercept form. So we're done there. All we need now is using these guys, we got to solve for x. And if you remember, to solve for the x, once you have an intercept form, we split and set them equal to 0. So we're going to go x minus 2 equal to 0. X plus 2 equal to 0. And then 2x minus 3 equal to 0. So add 2 here. That's x equal to 2. That's one x intercept. Subtract 2. X equal to negative 2. That's the second one. We're going to do a two-stepper here. We're going to add 3 to both sides. So we get 2x equal to 3 and then divide by 2. So x equals 3 over 2. Okay. This is the same as 1.5. So keep that in mind. So those are our 3 answers. We need to put them in intercept form. So intercept form is point form, which is our first one is 2 comma 0. Our y will be 0. Our next one is negative 2, 0. And then our last one, we'll do it 1.5 comma 0. Okay, so we got all the information we need. Let's graph these things. So we know our right side's going up, so I'm going to put a little arrow here. We know our left side is going down. We'll put a little arrow here, okay? So we got to connect these 2 arrows, and we have to put these points in. So 2 comma 0 is here. Negative 2 zeros here, and 1.50 is there. Okay, so now let's start on the left. I'm going to go to, from the bottom here, I need to go to touch my negative 2. So we go here. Before I cross negative 2, okay, so negative 2 came from negative 2 comma 0, which came from x equals negative 2. What was the degree in factored form? So if you look, negative 2 came from the x plus 2 guy. What's the x plus 2 guy's degree? And the answer is 1. So that means since it's 1, we are going to, at x equal to negative 2, we're just going to cross. Odds cross. Evens bounce. Okay? So we're going to cross, come back down, and then we're going to 1.5. All right? So 1.5, where did he come from? He came from the 2x minus 3 guy. What's his power? It's odd because it's 1. There's an exponent of 1 there. That means he's going to cross, and we got to come back up. And then we have 2. X equals to 2. He came from the x minus 2 factor. So we look at his degree, x minus 2. There's a factor or a degree of 1. That means he's also crossing. So all these end up crossing. So if I cross here, there we go. We end up how we are supposed to up. Okay? And real quick, if you look, our y-intercept is 12. So if we really want to be accurate, we would have a y-intercept of 12. So this guy would go all the way up to 12 and then come back down. But it's just a sketch. So hopefully we're good there. Okay? All right, let's do the last one. So this last one we have, I don't know if you could see it, so I'm going to rewrite it because it's a little small. So we have to fill in the blank using this intercept form of the equation, of the function. Okay, so before we do anything, we already have the intercept form or the factors form. So I'm going to throw that down here. So it's going to be negative x squared x plus 1. And then we have 5 minus x to the third. Okay, so this, I don't like that order. So we always could rewrite the order here. Just make sure the negative stays with the x. So this we really can write like this. Negative x, and then it's positive 5, right? Positive 5 to the third. Okay. On top of that, and this is what we got to be comfortable with. See this negative? We can't have a negative in our factor form inside. So we're going to GCF out a negative 1. Okay? So watch what we do here. We're going to take and divide this and take out a negative 1. So think about GCF. We're going to divide a negative 1 from it. So this is negative 1, and it switches the sign. So now it's positive x, but this turns into negative 5 to the third. Okay? So when we write this here, we have negative 1 and negative, or x minus 5 to the third. Okay, but here's the issue. See this negative 1? We have to multiply it with a negative 1 outside. We can't just leave it here. Okay, that's not right. So this negative 1 that we took out up here, this negative 1 is going to multiply with our front negative. This is actually negative 1 here too. So these guys will multiply with each other. So negative 1 times negative 1 is actually positive. So if I wrote this correctly, those negatives cancel each other out, and we're left with okay, and that is our intercept form. Okay, so because of that, we can start answering some of these questions. For example, Our leading coefficient is the number in front here. We now know it's positive, which tells us about the right side. So again, this is our right side. And we know it's positive. So when it's positive, we know the right side has to go up, which means this should be positive infinity. Now the degree, we're going to get the degree. We actually can get it from here if you wanted, but we're going to turn it into standard form. The degree is a little bit easier to see. But if you want, we could get the degree here. We could add these up. We add the powers. 3, there's a 1 here. That's 4, 5, and 6. So if we did everything right, our degree should be 6, which makes it even, okay? But before we put that in stone, let's just make sure it comes out that way in standard form. All right. So we'll get into all the other stuff right now, okay? Because our degree is even, that means we can fill in our left side here. And our left side, even means it does the same as our right side. So even degree means our left side is going to do the same or match our right side. So that means it's also going to go up, which makes this positive infinity. And I'm going to write this in. So our right side will go up and our left side go up. So those are just little notes in our graph. Okay. We also can find the x-intercepts. Using our intercept form, we can split these up and set equal to 0. So let's do that. So here is the work to find our x-intercepts. So we're going to take our final intercept form or factors form, which is going to be x squared, parentheses x plus 1, parentheses x minus 5 to the third. And we're going to solve this out. Okay? And what I mean by that, to find your x-intercepts, we split these, set them equal to 0. So we have x squared equal to 0, x plus 1 equal to 0, and then we have x minus 5 equal to 0. We ignore the power of this one. Okay, and we'll also ignore the power of this one. So I'm actually going to erase that. We just care about the variable. So one of our x-intercepts is already solved for. This one we're going to subtract by 1. That's x equal to negative 1. And this one, we're going to add 5. That's x equal to 5. Okay. But now, since we had powers on these, so power of 2, that means this guy has a multiplicity. That's what we call it. Multiplicity. That just means repeats. He repeats twice. So multiplicity of 2 because he had a power of 2. Okay? Which means this guy had a power of 3. So this guy repeats 3. This answer repeats 3 times, which means we have a multiplicity of 3. That just lets us know that he repeats 3 times. Okay? And that's going to help us for when we graph. Does it cross? Does it bounce? Remember the odd even? So let's write this in. We have our first x-intercept is 0. And then our y's are always 0 on our x-intercepts, right? That's for this guy. Our next x-intercept is negative 1, 0. And then our last one is 5, 0. Okay, I'm going to plot those. 0, 0, negative 1, 0, and 5, 0. Okay, so now we have that. All right, so we'll come back to this, but we have two more things to do. We're going to graph eventually, but now we've got to turn this into standard form. All right. So before I turn to standard form, I want to use this because I'm going to erase. I'm going to need a lot of room for this standard form. So what I want to do is I'm going to graph this. Okay. So let's start. We already got our end behavior, so we got our dot. So I'm going to start on the left, and I have to come down from the top because we're finishing up on the left. So come down from the top before I cross -1. -1, what was the power where we got our answer from -1? The factor, it was a power of 1. Okay? Which means, because it's odd, we're going to cross. So let's cross, and then we got to come back up. At 0, we got x equals 0 from this guy. He has a multiplicity of 2, or his power is even. That means since it's an even power, we're going to bounce. Okay, so a bounce means we're going to not cross the dot. We're going to hit the dot and bounce off of it. So we're coming back down, and we got to cross back up. And we have x equal to 5. That x-intercept came from this factor. He is an odd, which means odd, we're going to cross. Okay, so we're just going to cross back up. And there is our sketch. All right, guys. So now we did our sketch. Okay, so I'm going to erase this because we're going to need a lot of room for this, as you're going to see in a little bit. All right, so let's erase this stuff here. Okay, so my job now is I want to do standard form. To do standard form, I'm going to use intercept form. So let's write this, okay? So to do standard form, we start with intercept form, which is x squared, x plus 1, x minus 5 to the third. All right, so what does this really mean? We got to multiply all this out. So it looks like, oh, okay, not too bad, but watch. We have x squared, x plus 1, and then we're going to have x minus 5 3 times. So we really have to multiply all this out to figure this, okay? So I'm going to multiply these two, okay? And then we're going to multiply these two, and then we're going to multiply them together, and then multiply this after, okay? So bear with me, all right? So I'm going to erase some of this because we're going to need a lot of room here. So it's very important that you're organized as we do this, okay? So x times x, x squared. X times -5, -5x. 1 times x, x. 1 times -5, -5. Combine like terms, that's going to give me -4x here. So x squared minus 4x minus 5. Okay, we still have the x squared in front. Now we're going to do and multiply these two. X times x, x squared. X times -5, -5x. -5 times x, -5x. -5 times -5, positive 25. Combine like terms, this turns into -10x. So we have x squared minus 10x plus 25. Okay. All right. So here's where the magic happens. Okay. we're going to take this trinomial, this guy, and multiply him with each and every one of these guys. So pay attention. So x squared times x squared. Okay. X squared times x squared. That gives me x to the fourth. We add those exponents. X to the fourth. X squared times negative 10x. That's negative 10x to the third. Negative 10x to the third. X squared times 25. That's 25x squared. So positive 25x squared. Okay, we are done with him. Let's jump to the next guy. Negative 4x times here. Negative 4x times x squared. That's negative 4x to the third. Negative 4x times negative 10. That's positive 40x squared. And then negative 4x times 25. That's negative 100x. Okay, we are done with this. We're almost there. So now we go negative 5 times x squared. That's negative 5x squared. Negative 5 times negative 10. That's positive 50x. And negative 5 times 25. That's negative 125. Okay, we are done here. So we're going to combine like terms here and rewrite. So x to the fourth, any other x to the fourths? No. So we have x to the fourth, cross them out. X to the thirds. So we got x to the third, x to the third, and that's it. So negative 10 and negative 4, that's negative 14x to the third. So cross them out when you're done so you can keep everything organized. X to the second, x to the second, and x to the second. All right, 25, positive 25, positive 40, that's positive 65. So positive 65, but then we're going to take away 5. So it gives us positive 60. X to the second, cross them out, cross them out, cross them out. Now we're here, x and x. So we have negative 100, positive 50, that's negative 50x. Cross them, and if you cross everything out, kept everything organized, we can now bring down the negative 125. But we're almost done because we still got to multiply by our x squared in front. Okay, once we do that, we get our standard form. So watch. X squared times x squared. How many total x's? That's going to be a total of 6 x's. Okay. X squared times negative 14x3. So that's negative 14. And then how many total x's? Is going to be a total of 5 x's. X squared times 60x squared. That's positive 60 with a total of 4 x's. X squared times negative 50x. That's negative 50x to the third. And then x squared times negative 125, that's negative 125x squared. And this is standard form. Okay, it's a lot of work, but there it is. And again, just double check, was our degree 6? Yep, degree was 6. Positive leading coefficient. It all works out. Everything worked out. So now we want our y-intercept. So what we're going to do is, if you recall, plug in x equal to 0 into standard form. Okay, so I'm going to plug in 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Watch what happens. So we have 0 to the 6th power minus 14, 0 to the 5th power plus 60 times 0 to the 4th power minus 50 times 0 to the 3rd power minus 125 times 0 to the 2nd power. If you do all this math, 0 to the 6th is 0. 0 to the 5th is 0 times 14. 14 times 0 is 0. 0 to the 4th is 0. 0 times 60 is 0. 0 to the 3rd is 0. 0 times 50 is 0. 0 to the 2nd is 0. 0 times negative 125 is 0. That means y-intercept equals 0. And we put it in y-intercept form. That's going to be 0 for x and 0 for y. And that makes sense because if you look, there's my y-intercept. It was already a dot. It was also my x-intercept. Okay. So hopefully that helps. And I know this is a long video, but you could skip back and forth to check it out, okay?